was the rise of the multipolar world.
More and more countries want to determine their life themselves. South Africa, many others. They believe that they deserve a say in world affairs, and therefore multipolarity is a chance for the United Nations Charter principles to be materialized. Because before, during this globalization, the sovereign equality of states was never respected by our Western colleagues. Cheating is the key word for what was happening. President Museveni of Uganda was giving statistics of the world coffee market. All in all, assessed at about 450 billion euros, of which Africans were left with 40. Germany alone was getting more from the world coffee market than all African countries together. So this awakening is inevitable because NATO was manipulated by those who did not want to share security benefits. And they wanted to leave all the benefits for themselves, for others to listen and get instructions. And Eurasia is the biggest, the richest, I would say. Well, Africa is also very rich, but it is not yet opening up this potential.
Does Africa really understand? Do they know what's happening? Do they really see the full picture or the opportunity that the last 2 years of the revolution has awarded them? A multipolar world is closer now than it's ever been, going back hundreds of years. And even as the mainstream media is trying to villainize and anyone that's against the hegemonistic and colonial one world order, they're looking to villainize them. We should know that. Keeping the blinders on everyday people in Africa and around the world, but mainly right now in Africa. Maybe it's time to expand your knowledge and open up a new chapter. A new thing is being done. Do you not perceive it? From Ibrahim Traore all the way to Museveni's major impact at the Russian summit to another global superpower now, as Donald Trump is seeming to destroy the status quo of the West and now going with the side of history. A major player on the world stage from Russia, Lavrov, has come out and opened up about the meetings in the United States under the Trump administration. Sergei Lavrov, who's the Minister of the Foreign Affairs of Russia Federation, he's going to speak this in English, even though he speaks all kinds of languages, Diwali, Sinhala, and French. In addition to his native Russian language, he's going over this in English and quite candidly about the things that were discussed behind the closed doors. Many topics were confronted, many topics, from the issues of Africans and colonization and the problems infused by the Biden administration against them, as well as the lack of transparency and aggression from Macron and the EU. He also discussed President Trump's cabinet in hopes of a multipolar world resetting the standards for fairness in the global and economic trade, and it's happening now. I mean, Lavrov, he didn't shy away from hurting anyone's feelings in an interview, and I know you all are going to appreciate that part of it all. But for anyone who wants to understand the details of what is actually going on right now behind the surface, behind the mainstream media's smokescreen, well, this is worth your watching. Really, you might be more informed. You're going to be more informed watching this right here than you would be watching a CNN, MSNBC, or something like that, because this is straight from the horse's mouth, and this is the real deal, and this is what matters. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please like, subscribe, click that notification button. When we get information out, you can get information in. Mr. Lavrov. Oh, grab yourself a drink while you're at it.
Minister Lavrov, welcome to Antalya once again. I know that you're likely to respond in your mother tongue of Russian, but if I could ask this one question in English. You see a full room out here. I think after President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, you are by far the most popular figure here. How does it feel to be a diplomatic rock star?
Well, I think if we have heads of state being a real rock star, then there is nothing wrong with diplomats to be what they are. And if people like it, if people believe this is fun, so be it.
Well, I think, as they say, the proof is in the pudding. It's a full room. Next year, we should be asking for maybe the Aspendos Ancient Theater, just about 14 kilometers from here. It can fit 14,000 people, I think. Anyway, last year I had the privilege and honor to share the same stage with you. And one of the things that you tried to emphasize was the rise of the multipolar world. 12 months on, how do you assess the current state of this transition, and how do you feel this trajectory has met your country's expectations?
Well, I think the trend became even stronger. More and more countries, big countries, medium-sized countries, small countries, would like to have an equal say in the world affairs, in full conformity with the United Nations Charter, which says that the United Nations is based on sovereign equality of states. And more countries want to determine their life themselves, to have fair treatment, to have fair competition in economy, trade, in other areas, just in line with the principles of globalization, which were promoted by our Western friends, especially by the United States, for so many decades. And when everybody became persuaded, the globalization stopped, and what we observe is fragmentation of the world economy. This is the time of uncertainty, I would say. Nobody knows how the situation with world trade and investment is going to end. Well, there would be no end. How it is going to evolve, I would say, because there would be new twists in this situation. But generally speaking, about multipolarity, it is gaining ground, no doubt about this. Not only big countries like China, India, Brazil, Turkey, Indonesia, Egypt, South Africa, many others. They believe that they deserve a say in world affairs. And therefore, multipolarity is a chance for the United Nations Charter principles to be materialized. Because before, during this globalization, especially during Cold War, the sovereign equality of states was never respected by our Western colleagues. If you retrospectively consider history after World War II and creation of the United Nations, there was no single conflict where the West, the leaders of the West, would be treating parties to a conflict as equals. And I understand that this might sound idealistic, and maybe this equality would never be brought to life. But the principles of the Charter, drafted by the Founding Fathers, they already provided for multipolarity. Just like they provided for respect for human rights, respect for the right of nations to determine their fate themselves, and this is also on the rise. Manifestations are plentiful, and it is very important to underline that in our vision of multipolarity, as we promote this concept with our partners in Shanghai Cooperation Organization and BRICS, in Eurasian Economic Union, the concept of multipolarity does not exclude the West. It embraces everybody, just like the Charter instructed us. I see no reason why China and the US shouldn't have good relations, why Russia and the US shouldn't have good relations, why everybody shouldn't be treated with respect and with understanding of national interests. I had some contacts with the members of the Washington administration, And I liked the message which they were carrying. I'm not quoting, but in essence, the message was that the foreign policy of the United States is based on national interests of the United States. At the same time, the United States recognizes that other countries also have their national interests. And those interests would never coincide fully, maybe even half of these interests would not be similar. But when the interests, especially the interests of big countries, coincide, it is essential for them to find ways to materialize them into mutually beneficial economic, logistical, and other projects. While when these interests contradict each other, it is the responsibility and duty of countries, especially if we speak about big powers, not to allow these differences to degenerate into confrontation, especially the hot confrontation. All of these Euro-Atlantic constructions, I think they failed. They failed to consolidate security and stability. What they succeeded in is igniting tension and remilitarizing Europe, including Germany, in spite of the fact that the economic and social situation is degrading. But all efforts of this Euro-Atlantic community are concentrated on getting ready for a new war. And Germany, together with France and Britain, are in the lead of this. If you think about how the world looks now, Africa, well, everywhere there are sub-regional organizations, many of them. Organization of Turkish states, here, Eurasian Economic Union, ASEAN, Shanghai Cooperation, many. The same is true for Africa, many sub-regional groupings, and in Latin America. But Africa and Latin America, they do have their all-continental structures, African Union and CELAC. In Eurasia, there was never anything like this. As I said, the attempts to bring some big unifying projects were only made on the basis of Euro-Atlantic concept. President Putin, last year when he spoke in the foreign ministry, he suggested to consider the discussion of a potential security architecture in Eurasia as a continent. Architecture where all countries, without exceptions, including the western part of the continent, will be invited to participate, where all regional arrangements would be invited to join.
Do you feel that it's perhaps the West's failure, some of the institutions and bodies that they have set up after World War II? You've described it as a failure. That's how you said. And the fact that you're talking about a greater Eurasia partnership, aside the military, aside the strategic perspective, is that a success in the 21st century?
No, we cannot call a success something which is just being born in the minds of people. But the process of, analyzing the situation is based on the failures of the Euro-Atlantic models of security. NATO should have been dissolved in the first place after the Soviet Union ceased to exist, after the Warsaw Treaty ceased to exist. And there were voices in the West saying, guys, let's now concentrate on OSCE. Let's give it some push, and let's be all in one organization. NATO, the promises given to Gorbachev, then to Yeltsin, and there are memoirs where Some people ask, why didn't you insisted on a written guarantee when Jim Baker said NATO would not move an inch to the west, to the east? My answer, it just occurred to me. You know, in the Russian history, since 17th, 18th century, when the trade was booming, nobody signed any contracts. They shook hands.
Was a word of honor?
They shook hands, the word of honor, and it was never violated. So probably those who were running NATO at the time of we are discussing didn't have any relatives in the former Tsarist Empire, which is not my fault, and did not inherit those traditions. But NATO not only stayed, remained, it was basically announced that this would be the only organization which can guarantee your security. 1999, Istanbul, summit of OSCE, the solemn declaration is adopted, which among other things said, security is equal and indivisible. Everybody, yes, has the right to choose security alliances, but this cannot be done at the expense of diminishing of security of others. Then it was even blunter when it said no country, no group of countries, no organizations in the Euro-Atlantic OSCE area can claim dominance. And NATO was doing exactly this. The Istanbul formula was repeated verbatim. No organization can claim dominance, no one strengthen his security at the expense of security of others. The lady is uncomfortable, you think? No, but there is some commotion all the time here. We were told, it was during Obama administration, we were told, no, guys, you don't understand. Legally binding guarantees one can only get in NATO. We said, but your president signed this OSCE declaration. They said, this is political statement. Cheating is the key word for what was happening. So yes, my point is that NATO did not, or rather NATO failed to strengthen security because NATO was manipulated by those who did not want to share security benefits. And they wanted to leave all the benefits for themselves, for others to listen and get instructions. OSCE, another Euro-Atlantic creature, has failed a few years ago when the basic principle of consensus was grossly violated by the people who replaced each other at the position of the chair in office, at the Secretary General position, all the institutions, national minorities, freedom of media, what else? You see, I even forget about some institutions, which means that OSCE is not on anybody's mind anymore. Yes, they failed. We are not suggesting, to have another closed club. All continents have their own continental roofs, if you wish. Not in Eurasia. And Eurasia is the biggest, the richest, I would say. Well, Africa is also very rich, but it is not yet opening up this potential. Frankly, we are just at the beginning of the process. We don't want to rush things. We want everybody to join in free discussions, to present his or her views. It is not against anybody. It is not against NATO. I think the biggest enemy of NATO is NATO itself and those who were trying to use it to dominate in violation of their own pledges in OSCE. But the fragmentation process, which I mentioned, which is taking place in the world economy, it is also reflected in the security area, the discussions of NATO, the scares of Europeans, that they would be left to their own devices. We don't interfere. If they believe that they are still relevant in the form which failed many times, this is their right. The 5+1 format is, I think, mushrooming. So outsiders always are participating in something which they believe is of interest to them, and if they can find a form of cooperation which would be mutually beneficial. We cooperate with many countries in Africa, in Latin America, so do Western countries. Turkey in Africa is very much present. So do the Arab countries. The matter is, when you come to somebody's region, you should respect the views of the regionals, and host countries, if you wish, and not impose your rules, like our European and British colleagues are running all over the world. It used to be also Biden administration involved in this, running all over the world, saying, don't trade with Russia, don't sell to Russia, don't buy from Russia, don't meet with Russia. I know, because those are the facts. And this is not multipolarity. This is obsession with your global role, which you invented yourself and which worked during colonialism, during post-colonial times for some period. But now there is a second awakening of the Global South. After the decolonization process, the Global South was happy, freedom, but now they understand that the global economy was crafted the way which left them with peanuts from the use of the natural resources which they inherited from God and history. Absolutely. I remember during the second Russia-Africa summit in 2003 in St. Petersburg, President Museveni of Uganda was giving statistics of the world coffee market. Mm-hmm. All in all, assessed at about 450 billion euros, of which Africans were left with 40, less than 10%, because their contribution was raw beans, harvested and sent for roasting, packaging, advertising. Germany alone was getting more from the world coffee market than all African countries together. So this awakening is inevitable. Yes, the tariff war, which we witness now, is going to, change many things. We hear that many countries would like to sit down with the United States and negotiate. Fine. We would only be happy if people reach some deals peacefully and to their mutual satisfaction. World Trade Organization, unfortunately, is paralyzed. It was paralyzed by previous American administrations for many, many years. And there is no global institution which would be authoritative enough for everybody to accept its ruling. So I believe we just must have these discussions about security, Eurasian security, but in the context of the multipolarity movement, which is shaping itself up objectively.
So there you go, ladies and gentlemen, uninterrupted Lavrov in the Russian Federation. speaking out on what is actually going on right now. So please feel free to like, subscribe, and leave some comments below on how you feel about what he has just said. And I want to thank you all from the bottom of my heart for watching. We appreciate you. One love, God is good, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.